Welcome to another episode of Thailand Truth Talks. Framed in Thailand, the expat who helped a friend then discovered the system was rigged against him. The immigration officer's voice was flat, bureaucratic. Mr. Kowalski, you are under investigation for visa fraud, illegal business operations, and tax evasion. The words hung in the stale air of the Chang Watana immigration office, like smoke from a cigarette that wouldn't burn out. Janusz Kowalski, 62 years old, sat in the plastic chair, staring at the officer across the metal desk. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his reading glasses. I'm sorry? What? There must be some mistake. I'm retired. I don't have any business operations. The officer, whose nameplate read Captain Somsak, didn't look up from his papers. Your name appears on documents for a company registration. Your signature is on a lease agreement for commercial property. You are listed as a co-owner of a bar establishment in Pattaya. He finally raised his eyes. These are serious violations of Thai immigration law. Janusz felt the room spin slightly. A bar? He'd never owned a bar. He'd never even wanted to own a bar. I think there has been a misunderstanding. I helped translate some documents for a friend a few months ago, but I never... Your passport, please. It wasn't a request. Captain Somsak's hand was already extended, waiting. Janusz handed over the burgundy Polish passport, watching as it disappeared in a manila folder. That folder might as well have been a black hole. He had no idea when he'd see it again. You will remain in Thailand until this matter is resolved, the officer continued. You are not permitted to leave the country. You will report to this office every week until further notice. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like trapped insects. Janusz sat there, trying to process what was happening. 6 months ago, he'd been living his dream retirement in a quiet apartment in Hua Hin. Now he was, what? A criminal? A fugitive? He wasn't sure what he was anymore. Janusz Kowalski had come to Thailand with the same dream as thousands of other middle-class retirees from across Europe. After 35 years as a civil engineer in Krakow, he'd saved enough for a modest retirement. Not wealthy, not comfortable, the kind of comfortable that could stretch further in Thailand than anywhere else in the world. Poland had been changing rapidly since he was young, but not always in ways that felt welcoming to someone approaching retirement. The cost of living was rising. The winters seemed longer and harsher each year. His pension, which had seemed adequate when he was 50, felt increasingly tight as he approached 60. Thailand offered something different. Warmth, affordability, a community of other expats who'd made the same choice. The tourist visa runs were manageable. The visa agents in Bangkok knew the system inside and out. For 50,000 baht, they could arrange an education visa to study Thai language. For a bit more, they could help with the retirement visa paperwork once he turned 60. It had worked perfectly for 3 years. Janusz rented a one-bedroom apartment in Hua Hin for 12,000 baht a month. He ate at local restaurants for 60 baht per meal. He'd made friends with other expats at the weekly quiz nights at Murphy's Irish Pub. There was Klaus from Germany studying Muay Thai at 65. There was Mary from France, who'd opened a small art gallery. There was Alex from Australia, who'd started a modest bar near the beach. The life was exactly what he'd imagined. Slow mornings with coffee in the Bangkok Post, afternoons by the pool, evening walks along the beach. His pension went 3 times further than it would have in Poland. He felt, for the first time in years, genuinely relaxed. But something had started to change in the past year. The visa rules seemed to shift without warning. The immigration officers were asking more questions. The 30-day visa exemption that had been routine suddenly required proof of onward travel and financial statements. The retirement visa requirements had been tightened. Where once you could borrow the required 800,000 baht for the bank statement, now you had to keep it in the account for months before and after your visa application. Janusz had started to notice other changes too. The small restaurants where he used to eat were being replaced by more expensive establishments. The massage parlors and internet cafes were closing, replaced by co-working spaces and specialty coffee shops. The signs were increasingly in English, but somehow the prices were rising faster than the language was improving. Still, he'd adapted. He'd learned to navigate the new requirements. He'd kept his head down and his paperwork in order. He'd thought he was safe. Alex Morgan was the kind of expat who'd arrived in Thailand with big dreams and limited capital. He'd come from Brisbane, Australia, with his redundancy payout and a plan to open a beach bar in Hua Hin. He was friendly, enthusiastic, and completely unprepared for the bureaucratic maze of starting a business in Thailand. Janusz had met Alex at a weekly quiz night. Alex was struggling with the Thai language, frustrated by the legal requirements, and running low on money. He'd been trying to register his business for months, but the paperwork was overwhelming. Thai company law required that 51% of any business be owned by Thai nationals. Alex had found Thai partners, but the lawyers were expensive and the forms were confusing. "I just need someone to help me understand what these documents say," Alex had said one evening over beers. "My Thai isn't good enough, and the lawyers keep giving me forms in Thai that I can't read properly." Janusz had studied English in school and had picked up decent Thai during his 3 years in the country. He'd helped other expats with translation before. It seemed like a small favor for someone who was clearly struggling. The documents Alex showed him were standard company registration forms. There were shareholding agreements, lease contracts, and tax registration papers. Janusz had translated the key sections, explaining that Alex would hold 49% of the company while his Thai partners would hold 51%. It was a common arrangement for foreign-owned businesses in Thailand. "Would you mind signing as a witness?" Alex had asked. "The lawyer says some of these forms need a foreign witness signature." Janusz had hesitated. He'd heard stories about expats getting into trouble by signing documents they didn't fully understand. But Alex was a friend, and the lawyer had explained that a witness signature was just a formality. He'd sign where Alex pointed. That was 4 months ago. The bar had opened, struggled for a few weeks, and then closed. Alex had left Thailand suddenly, claiming he'd run out of money and needed to return to Australia to sort out his finances. Janusz had assumed that was the end of it. He'd been wrong. The letter from immigration had arrived on a Tuesday morning. Report to Cheng Watana Immigration Office for questioning regarding irregularities in your visa status and potential violations of Thai immigration law. The letter was official, stamped, and terrifying. Janusz had immediately called his visa agent, a woman named Kun Siriporn, who'd been helping him with paperwork for 2 years. She'd sounded worried when he read her the letter. "This is not normal," she'd said. "Usually they call us first if there's a problem. You should get a lawyer." The lawyer, a Thai man named Kun Narong, who specialized in immigration cases, had been equally concerned. "They're investigating your connection to a business registration. Do you have any involvement in Thai companies?" Janusz had explained about helping Alex with the translation and signing as a witness. Kun Narong had gone quiet for a long moment. "This could be very serious," he'd finally said. "If your name is on company documents, they might claim you're illegally operating a business on a tourist visa. The penalties can include fines, deportation, and blacklisting." Now, sitting in the immigration office, Janusz was beginning to understand the scope of the problem. According to the documents Captain Somsak was showing him, he wasn't just a witness. He was listed as a co-owner of the bar company. His signature wasn't just on a witness line, it was on ownership documents. "I never agreed to own anything," Janusz said, his voice rising slightly. "I was just helping with translation." Captain Somsak's expression didn't change. "According to Thai law, your signature on these documents indicates your agreement to the terms. Ignorance of the law is not a defense." The officer opened another folder. "We have also discovered that you have been living in Thailand for 3 years on tourist visas and education visas. This suggests you are using Thailand as a place of residence rather than for legitimate tourism or education purposes." Janusz felt a chill. This wasn't just about Alex's bar anymore. They were questioning his entire legal basis for being in Thailand. "I've always followed the rules," he said. "I've used legal visa agents. I've reported my address every 90 days. I've never worked illegally." "The interpretation of the rules has changed," Captain Somsak replied. "We are now more strictly enforcing the requirement that tourist visas be used for genuine tourism purposes. Multiple tourist visas suggest residency, which requires a different visa category." The meeting lasted 2 hours. Janusz left with a list of documents he needed to provide, a schedule of weekly reporting appointments, and a growing sense that he was caught in a system that was designed to trap him. The first lawyer wanted 50,000 baht upfront. The second wanted 75,000. The third, who came highly recommended by other expats, wanted 100,000 baht and couldn't guarantee any outcome. "These cases are very difficult," Kun Narong explained during their second meeting. "The immigration office has become much more strict in recent years. They are looking for any reason to deny visa applications or cancel existing permits." Janusz had started to notice a pattern in the lawyer's advice. Every solution involved paying money to someone. Filing an appeal required fees. Providing additional documentation required fees. Even scheduling meetings with immigration officers required facilitation fees that seemed to go directly into officials' pockets. "Is there no way to just explain the misunderstanding?" Janusz asked. Kun Narong shook his head. "The system doesn't work that way anymore. Once they start an investigation, they need to find a resolution. Either you pay the fines and accept deportation, or you pay the lawyers and try to fight it." The weekly reporting appointments became a ritual of humiliation. Janusz would arrive at the immigration office at 8 in the morning, take a number, and wait for hours to be called. When his turn came, he would sit across from Captain Somsak or one of his colleagues and answer the same questions, and provide the same explanations. Have you had any contact with Alex Morgan? No, sir. Do you have any other business interests in Thailand? No, sir. Are you planning to leave Thailand? I would like to resolve this matter first, sir. The questions never changed, but the atmosphere grew more oppressive each week. Other expats in the waiting room would look at him with a mixture of sympathy and fear. He was becoming a cautionary tale, a reminder of how quickly their comfortable expatriate lives could unravel. Meanwhile, his money was draining away. The lawyers were expensive. The hotel where he'd moved after his landlord asked him to leave was expensive. The visa agents who'd once helped him navigate the system were now avoiding his calls. Everyone, it seemed, was afraid to be associated with someone under investigation. It was during his 6th week of reporting that Janusz met Henrik, a Danish man who was sitting in the same waiting area, holding the same type of folder, wearing the same expression of confused defeat. Visa problems? Janusz asked during one of their long waits. Henrik nodded grimly. They say I was working illegally. I helped my neighbor fix his motorbike and he gave me some money for parts. Now they're claiming I was operating a motorcycle repair business without a work permit. Over the following weeks, Janusz met others. There was Francois from Belgium who'd been charged with illegal tour operations after posting photos of local temples on his blog. There was Alessandro from Italy who'd been accused of running an illegal language school after tutoring his Thai girlfriend in English. There was Mikhail from the Czech Republic who'd been charged with tax evasion after selling his used car to another expat. The pattern was always the same. A small favor, a minor transaction, a misunderstanding about the rules, then an investigation, lawyers, fees, and the slow grinding process of the Thai bureaucracy. It's like they're looking for reasons to get rid of us, Hendrik said one afternoon as they waited for their appointments. Have you noticed that the guys with money don't seem to have these problems? Janusz had noticed. The wealthy expats who lived in the luxury condominiums, who had investment visas or elite visas, seemed to move through the system without friction. Their visa applications were processed quickly. Their business registrations were approved without question. When they had problems, they were resolved quietly, without weekly reporting requirements or threats of deportation. That evening, Janusz found himself browsing the expat forums on Reddit and Facebook with new eyes. The complaints that had once seemed like isolated incidents now appeared to be part of a larger pattern. Anyone else notice that immigration is being extra strict with retirement visas this year? Read one post. My agent says they're trying to weed out the fake tourists who are actually living here. Another post. Friend of mine got deported for helping someone with a business registration. They said he was illegally working as a translator. Meanwhile, the guy with the elite visa in my building runs 3 companies and nobody asks him questions. And another, is it just me, or are they making it harder for regular middle-class expats to stay here? The new visa requirements are pricing out everyone except the wealthy. The forum discussions revealed a growing paranoia among Thailand's expat community. The visa rules were changing faster than people could adapt. The immigration offices were interpreting regulations more strictly. The penalties for minor infractions were becoming more severe. But there was something else in the discussions that chilled Janusz to the bone. The crackdown wasn't random. It was targeted. The expats who were being investigated, prosecuted, and deported were almost exclusively middle-class retirees and small business owners. The wealthy investors, the digital nomads with substantial savings, the holders of elite visas, they seemed to be immune. They want to upgrade the quality of expats, one anonymous poster had written. Out with the retirees living on small pensions. In with the rich investors and digital entrepreneurs. It's economic cleansing, and they're using the visa system to do it. As Janusz's case dragged on, he began to see the system with new clarity. The immigration crackdown wasn't about enforcing the law. It was about engineering a specific type of expat community. The evidence was everywhere once you knew how to look for it. The new visa categories being introduced were designed for wealthy applicants. The digital nomad visa required proof of substantial income. The investment visa required millions of baht in capital. The elite visa, which had once been a luxury option, was now becoming the only reliable path to long-term residency for those who could afford it. Meanwhile, the visa categories that middle-class expats relied on were being systematically undermined. The education visa requirements had been tightened. The retirement visa financial requirements had been increased and made more difficult to maintain. The tourist visa exemptions that had allowed people to live in Thailand on modest budgets were being scrutinized more heavily. The message was clear. Thailand wanted a different kind of foreigner. Not the retirees stretching their pensions, not the small business owners trying to build modest enterprises, not the middle-class expats who'd made Thailand their home because it was affordable. They wanted investors, entrepreneurs, and wealthy tourists who would spend their money without needing to work or start businesses. Janusz realized he was caught in a transition period. The Thailand that had welcomed him 5 years ago was being systematically dismantled. The new Thailand being built in its place had no room for someone like him. The bureaucratic harassment he was experiencing wasn't incompetence or corruption. It was policy, not written policy, but the kind of policy that exists in the space between official rules and unofficial enforcement. The kind of policy that allows officials to interpret regulations strictly for some people and leniently for others. They're not trying to deport us, Hendrik said during one of their conversations. They're trying to make us deport ourselves. The breakthrough came during Janusz's 10th week of reporting. Captain Somsak was absent, and he was interviewed by a younger officer who seemed more willing to speak openly. You know, the officer said, these cases are very difficult for everyone. For you, for us, for the system. Maybe it would be easier if you just accepted voluntary deportation. No blacklist, no criminal record, just a quiet exit. Janusz stared at him. You're asking me to leave Thailand voluntarily? The officer shrugged. I'm suggesting that sometimes the easier solution is the best solution. You go back to Poland. You apply for a proper retirement visa from there. You come back when everything is sorted out. But I've done nothing wrong. That's not really the point anymore, is it? The officer's honesty was more terrifying than Captain Somsak's bureaucratic coldness. This wasn't about justice or law enforcement. This was about making unwanted people disappear. That evening, Janusz called his sister in Krakow. It was the first time he'd spoken to family about his situation. Maybe you should just come home, she said. Poland has changed. The economy is better. Your pension would go further now than it did when you left. But Janusz knew it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the principle. He'd built a life in Thailand. He'd followed the rules, paid his taxes, contributed to the community. He'd done nothing wrong except help a friend with some paperwork. Now he was being told that his presence was no longer welcome, not because of what he'd done, but because of who he was, a middle-class retiree taking up space that Thailand wanted to reserve for wealthier foreigners. After 3 months of weekly reporting, lawyer meetings, and mounting expenses, Janusz faced a decision. He could continue fighting the charges, spending what remained of his savings on legal fees with no guarantee of success, or he could accept the voluntary deportation offer and leave Thailand quietly. The mathematics were brutal. The legal battle would cost him at least 200,000 baht, possibly more. Even if he won, his reputation in the expat community would be permanently damaged. Future visa applications would be scrutinized more heavily. He would always be marked as someone who'd had problems with Thai immigration. Voluntary deportation, on the other hand, would allow him to leave with dignity, no criminal record, no blacklist, no permanent ban from returning. He could go back to Poland, regroup, and possibly return to Thailand in the future on a proper retirement visa. But it would also mean accepting defeat. It would mean acknowledging that the system had successfully pressured him into leaving. It would mean that Thailand had won. "What would you do?" he asked Hendrik during their final meeting in the immigration office waiting room. Hendrik had made his choice the week before. "I'm going back to Denmark next month. I can't afford to keep fighting this, and I'm too old to start over somewhere else." Francois had already left. Alessandro was planning to leave at the end of the month. Mikhail had been deported after refusing to pay the fines. One by one, the middle-class expats who'd made Thailand their home were being pushed out. Janusz chose voluntary deportation. The paperwork was processed quickly, much more quickly than any of the documents he tried to file during his legal battle. Within 2 weeks, he had his passport back and a departure order that required him to leave Thailand within 30 days. The efficiency of his exit was a stark contrast to the months of bureaucratic delays he'd experienced while trying to resolve his case. It was as if the system had been designed to make leaving easy and staying difficult. His last night in Thailand was spent in a hotel near Suvarnabhumi airport. He'd sold his possessions, closed his bank account, and said goodbye to the few friends who were still in the country. The life he'd built over 5 years had been reduced to 2 suitcases and a carry-on bag. The flight to Warsaw was half empty. He recognized several faces from the expat community, other middle-class retirees who'd made the same choice he had. They nodded at each other politely, but didn't speak. There was nothing to say. As the plane lifted off, Janusz looked down at the lights of Bangkok, spread out below. Somewhere in that sprawling city, wealthy investors were starting new businesses. Digital nomads were working from co-working spaces, and elite visa holders were enjoying their guaranteed residency. Thailand was becoming the country it wanted to be. Exclusive, expensive, and unwelcoming to people like him. 6 months later, Janusz was living in a small apartment in Krakow, trying to rebuild his life in a country that had changed while he was away. Poland's economy had improved, but the cost of living had risen dramatically. His pension, which had seemed adequate for a comfortable retirement in Thailand, barely covered basic expenses in his hometown. He'd started following the expat forums again, partly out of curiosity and partly out of a masochistic desire to see how the situation was developing. The reports were consistent. The crackdown was continuing. More middle-class expats were being investigated, prosecuted, and pressured to leave. The visa requirements were becoming more stringent. The penalties for minor infractions were becoming more severe. But there were also success stories, wealthy investors that were still getting their visas approved quickly. Digital nomads with substantial savings were thriving under the new visa categories. The holders of elite visas were largely unaffected by the changes. The pattern was becoming clearer. Thailand wasn't trying to reduce the number of foreign residents, it was trying to change the type of foreign residents. Out with the budget retirees and small business owners, in with the wealthy investors and high-spending tourists. The transformation was working. The expat community in Thailand was becoming more exclusive, more expensive, and more disconnected from the local economy. The days when a middle-class European could retire comfortably in Thailand were ending. Janusz had become part of a quiet exodus, not the dramatic mass deportations that would make international news, but a steady stream of middle-class expats who were being priced out, regulated out, and pressured out of the country they'd chosen as their home. He'd started writing about his experience, partly as therapy and partly as a warning to others. His blog posts were shared widely on expat forums, generating hundreds of comments from people who'd had similar experiences or were facing similar pressures. "They don't want us anymore," he wrote in one post. "Not the retirees, not the small business owners, not the middle-class expats who made Thailand our home because it was affordable and welcoming. They want investors, entrepreneurs, and wealthy tourists. They want people who will spend money without needing to work, or build businesses, or integrate into local communities." The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of expats shared their own stories of bureaucratic harassment, changing visa requirements, and pressure to leave. The pattern was consistent across the country, from Bangkok to Pattaya to Chiang Mai to Phuket. Thailand's transformation was part of a broader global trend. Countries around the world were using immigration policy to attract wealthy foreigners while discouraging middle-class migrants. Golden visas, investment visas, and elite residency programs were proliferating, creating a two-tier system where access to residency was determined by wealth rather than contribution to society. The COVID-19 pandemic had accelerated this trend. Many countries had used the crisis as an opportunity to restructure their immigration systems, making them more selective and more expensive. Thailand's approach was particularly sophisticated, using bureaucratic pressure rather than explicit policy changes to engineer demographic change. The result was a new type of expat community, wealthier, more transient, and more disconnected from local society. The long-term residents who'd built businesses, learned the language, and integrated into Thai communities were being replaced by digital nomads, wealthy retirees, and investment visa holders who saw Thailand as a lifestyle destination rather than a home. The economic impact was mixed. Thailand was attracting more wealthy foreigners, but it was losing the middle-class expats who'd contributed to local economy through small businesses, property rentals, and daily spending. The gentrification of the expat community was part of a broader gentrification of Thailand itself. The social impact was clearer. The expat community was becoming more stratified, more temporary, and more isolated from Thai society. The cultural exchange and integration that had characterized earlier waves of Western immigration to Thailand were being replaced by a more transactional relationship between wealthy foreigners and service providers. As Janusz reflected on his experience, he realized that his case had never been about Alex Morgan's bar or the documents he'd signed. It had been about engineering his departure from Thailand without the Thai government having to take responsibility for explicitly changing its immigration policies. The bureaucratic harassment, the changing interpretations of visa rules, the financial pressure, these were tools designed to make unwanted expats choose to leave voluntarily. It was more effective than formal deportation because it avoided international criticism and allowed Thailand to maintain its reputation as a welcoming destination for foreigners. The genius of the system was its deniability. Officials could claim they were simply enforcing existing laws more strictly. They could point to successful visa applications from wealthy foreigners as evidence that the system wasn't discriminatory. They could argue that the expats who were leaving had chosen to do so voluntarily, but the pattern was clear to anyone who cared to look. Thailand was systematically purging its middle-class expat population while rolling out the red carpet for wealthy investors and high-spending tourists. The visa system was being weaponized to engineer demographic change without the appearance of discrimination. Janusz's personal tragedy was part of a larger transformation. Thailand was becoming a more exclusive destination, one that welcomed wealthy foreigners while discouraging those who couldn't afford elite visas or investment requirements. The Thailand that had offered affordable retirement and business opportunities to middle-class Europeans was disappearing. The implications extended beyond Thailand. If other countries adopted similar approaches, the global mobility that had allowed middle-class people to retire or start businesses abroad would become a privilege reserved for the wealthy. The democratization of international migration that had characterized the early 21st century would be reversed. Today, Janusz lives quietly in Krakow, working part-time as a translator and following the news from Thailand with a mixture of sadness and vindication. The crackdown has continued. The visa requirements have become more stringent. The penalties for minor infractions have become more severe. But he's also seen the success stories. Wealthy investors are still getting their visas approved quickly. Digital nomads with substantial savings are thriving under the new visa categories. The holders of elite visas are largely unaffected by the changes. The message is clear. Thailand welcomes foreigners, but only the right kind of foreigners. The middle-class expats who made Thailand their home because it was affordable and welcoming are no longer wanted. They're being replaced by a more exclusive, more expensive, and more transient population. For those considering Thailand as a retirement destination or business opportunity, Janusz's advice is simple. Understand that the system may not want you unless you're wealthy. The days of affordable retirement in Thailand are ending. The visa system is being used to engineer demographic change. The bureaucratic harassment he experienced wasn't an anomaly, it was policy. Don't make the same mistake I did, he writes in his blog. Don't assume that following the rules will protect you. Don't assume that contributing to the community will make you welcome. Don't assume that Thailand wants you just because you want to be there. The Thailand that welcomed middle-class expats is disappearing. The new Thailand is being built for the wealthy. Those who can't afford to play by the new rules should make their plans accordingly. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. And if you're not wealthy, it's designed to get rid of you.